New reaction on CM Punk's infamous, now deleted Instagram story from last night bashing AEW, Jon Moxley, Chris Jericho, and others. We have reaction from Chris Jericho himself. Also, we have reaction from CM Punk after posting and deleting the story. We've also got information on why the story was posted in the first place in reaction to what Dave Meltzer had posted earlier on. And we've also got more context on why Punk threatened to quit AEW in 2022 after he was pitched the idea from Jon Moxley. This is going to get ugly. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. This is going to be a busy day when it comes to all news AEW and CM Punk. We covered the story last night, but the reaction has already begun. More context, more responses, and more details are being revealed when it comes to CM Punk, his now infamous deleted story regarding what happened upon his AEW comeback last year from a broken foot injury, the match with Jon Moxley, the creative, the fallout to brawl out, and Punk really for the first time publicly commenting on some of the issues he was having in AEW. Now, let's get into this first in case you missed it last night, but it's the talk of the wrestling world at the moment. Just when you think things seem to be calming down in All Elite Wrestling, the ghost of All Out 2022 reared its ugly head once again. If you're not familiar, former AEW World Champion CM Punk took to Instagram to share his since deleted grievances with Jon Moxley, Chris Jericho, and the Wrestling Observer's Dave Meltzer. The situation appears to have sprung from a post that Meltzer made on the Figure 4 Weekly message board, in which Meltzer says that Punk did not agree to lose the AEW Championship to Moxley after his foot injury earlier on in the summer. Meltzer also says that Punk only went through with plans when AEW President Tony Khan put his foot down. Now, we have the comment in question that seems to have sparked all of this. Again, it comes from Dave Meltzer. You can see it on the screen right there. This is what he posted. Quote, "Do you know why they didn't advertise Punk versus Moxley longer and why it had a short build? Because Punk agreed to it, then AEW got a legal letter saying he wasn't down with it and wasn't going to do it. And they didn't know if he'd come until Tony put his foot down. There are a lot of nice things I can say about him, and you can absolutely argue his position on Moxley was correct, but you can't argue he willingly did what he was asked to do in that scenario." Now, many people would argue Dave Meltzer, being Dave Meltzer again, probably has one side of the story and not all of the information, and that certainly is where CM Punk disagreed with the matter, because Punk took to Instagram last night, posted this story in response to Meltzer's claims, and it was a pretty damning one to say the least. You can see it on the screen right there once again. It says, "Sigh, I wasn't cleared to wrestle yet." It continues by saying, obviously, the issues he was having. "Sigh, I wasn't cleared to come back to wrestle yet. Then the plan was to wrestle at the pay-per-view. I sat and listened to Moxley's Rocky 3 idea. I explained how I'd never seen a Rocky movie, and I thought the idea sucked, but if the boss wanted to do it, whatever. He said he wouldn't lose to me. I'd never experienced someone refusing to lose to me. I just laughed. I asked Tony if this was what he wanted. He said yes. He's the boss, so I said okay, but I'd need to be cleared first. They kept saying it could just be a squash, so I didn't need to be cleared. I scoffed at that. My health is more important. Dave Meltzer is a liar. Jericho is a liar and a stooge. There were plans, but plans always change. But I'll never put a company above my health ever again." Very, 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 very damning stuff when it comes to CM Punk and what he's saying right there. Now, certainly, again, that had the wrestling world pretty on fire, and it would appear, certainly, that CM Punk appears to be blaming former AEW World Champion Chris Jericho for the stories of Punk's dealings with Moxley, Khan, and others, possibly also referring to previous reports that he had painted Punk as a locker room cancer. Of course, it had been reported that after the brawl, after All Out, Jericho had come up to CM Punk in his face, called CM Punk a cancer to AEW and a detriment to the locker room, and he's suggesting and implying that Chris Jericho is leaking information, planting stories with Dave Meltzer that are then being distributed to paint CM Punk in a bad light, which again isn't necessarily a million miles from the truth, as we do know, and we have seen Jericho say things in recent interviews that pretty much have been worded verbatim by Meltzer a couple of months ago. Punk, of course, hasn't been seen in All Elite Wrestling since the waning hours of September 4, 2022, after an enraged and injured Punk unleashed a vitriolic tirade against his AEW co-workers, which led to a backstage brawl between Punk, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, Ace Steel, and other members of the AEW talent relations and legal staff. The brawl resulted in the firing of Ace Steel, who was a producer/coach for AEW. Punk and the Elite were placed on a hiatus akin to a suspension. Of course, Omega and the Bucks have since returned to AEW. Punk hasn't right now. He's still out of action, dealing with a torn triceps injury. So seemingly, again, Punk's rant on social media last night was in response to Dave Meltzer. Since then, we do have some responses actually from CM Punk and from Chris Jericho in question. And we'll get to Jericho's response in just a second. But CM Punk has now returned to the place where it all started to share his thoughts on everything unfolding as it has last night, once again with controversy surrounding the former two-time AEW World Champion. Simply posting this, once again on his Instagram story. He simply shared a screenshot of Roger Murto from the Lethal Weapon alongside his famous phrase, "I'm too old for this shit," which is kind of what he was saying actually in his post-All Out Media Scrum rant when he said infamously, I'm old, I'm hurt, and I'm tired, and he's saying that he's too old for this stuff. Well, Chris Jericho, the person that CM Punk had thrown some shade at, has also responded to this, posting his own version of an Instagram story. We can see that on the screen right now, and simply it's delete. In case you are missing the reference here, it's a Matt Hardy delete gif, and of course, Jericho, who Punk branded a liar and a stooge in the post, has now responded to Punk's comments. More so the fact that Punk quickly deleted the post. I don't really know what he's implying. Is he maybe implying that he's suggesting that Punk knows it's not true, that's why he deleted it? Or maybe you could argue that CM Punk, it was more of a situation of him going, I just don't want to deal with this anymore, but he felt like he had to respond. One thing's for certain, and this is where I think social media is divided on this, is that Punk reacts. Punk reacts to a lot of things, and I think what gets lost in all of this too is that some of the issues and some of the grievances that CM Punk had or was having in this situation aren't entirely unfounded. It's just the manner of how he gets across his point. I said on social media last night, and I still have this point, I think the Moxley versus Punk doing it 7-10 days before the pay-per-view was dumb, and the Rocky 3 idea was dumb. To be honest with you, it didn't make a lot of sense then, and it makes less sense now, even with the context. Now, it's quite funny, actually, because Cody Rhodes just a week ago did an interview with Ryan Satin on Out of Character, and he was actually waxing lyrical that he loved Rocky 3, while namingly leaning on the strength and toughness of his wife Brandy Rhodes was cited. Cody also noted he enjoyed some light entertainment as well. He said, from an entertainment standpoint, I went back to an oldie, to a goodie with all of the Rocky. My favorite being Rocky 3. Rocky 3 is the best because he loses, then he has to get his cardio going, and it's a whole beautiful mess. Now, obviously, this was not related to the CM Punk situation, but some people said, was that a hint? Was that an implication of something to come? No, I don't think it was. Even though Cody probably would know with his sources in AEW still, but that's just a side point. But what is quite interesting too is a story that was posted by Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select. This was on August 18, 2022. And the headline at the time was, CM Punk, quote, may have almost decided not to come to Dynamite last night, more on Hangman Page promo. Now, August 18 or August 17, which was the Dynamite episode, August 17, was 7 days after CM Punk had returned at Quake at the Lake. And at the time, a lot of people said, what? Why would have Punk not shown up on Dynamite last night? He just returned 7 days ago. Why would he be threatening to quit? Why would he be having issues? He's just come back. This was after, of course, CM Punk had cut that infamous promo upon his return where he called out Hangman Page, even though Hangman was never going to come out, and Punk kind of had gone into business for himself, but so had Hangman in a promo they had done previously, so there was this conflict going on already. But now we kind of know why maybe he wasn't happy at the time and why he was unhappy. Now, again, in this promo, he came out, he spoke about being back. He started off in Hangman's hometown calling out Hangman Page and then calling him a coward, even though he knew Hangman was never going to come out. It was a receipt for what he believed Hangman had gone into business for himself earlier on in the year in their feud ahead of Double or Nothing. Now, this is what Sean Ross Sapp said at the time. The belief among several on the roster that Fightful spoke to was that Punk believed Hangman went into business for himself leading into their Double or Nothing match, and Punk may have seen the August 17 promo as a receipt. It's important to note that that was the locker room speculation as opposed to Punk telling anyone directly. From Punk's end of things, there was a Hangman promo that had alluded to Punk's issues with Colt Cabana happened and didn't sit well with Punk. There was also another promo happened during a week where Punk wasn't at the show, and that accelerated it. They said that Punk's shot at Hangman happened with Hangman present, and that's how that person close to Punk justified it. Now, this is when it gets really interesting. At the time, again, it didn't make a lot of sense. Now it makes a ton of sense. It continues. Sources familiar with the situation claim that CM Punk has often verbally expressed his displeasure about things, including recently so blatantly that they thought he might end up quitting the company. Those close to him said that he might have almost decided to stay at home instead of coming to the August 17 Dynamite, but don't think he would have quit. We haven't been given any indication that he plans on leaving AEW, but one veteran said they have heard of threats being levied. And again, that makes sense now because he would have returned at Quake at the Lake, and sometime within that 7-day period, he would have been pitched the idea of the Rocky 3 story by Jon Moxley. He didn't like it. He said on his story, I don't like it. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So in that 7-day period, he's annoyed anyway, and he's having issues with Hangman Page and others backstage in AEW. Then he's told, by the way, you're going to come back. You're not cleared to wrestle just yet. The plan initially was for you to wrestle at the pay-per-view. We want you to come back. We want you to lose the championship to Moxley at a squash match and then win the title back a few days later at the pay-per-view. He didn't like that. So at that period of time, he thought, am I going to show up? I don't know. At the time, when this story came out, it felt really random, but the context is there and it makes a lot of sense. It continues. Fightful was also told that the Moxley versus Punk match for the August 24 episode of AEW Dynamite was a late decision. We haven't been told how late, and when we asked the AEW higher-ups for context, we didn't gain any. We haven't learned the crux of what led to Punk's current frustrations that would have led to him hypothetically not showing up at Dynamite, whether it be the change in the match, Hangman's jab back in May, or otherwise. So it makes a lot of sense. They are saying that title match, the undisputed title match on the August 24, 2022 episode of AEW Dynamite was a very last minute late decision. I.e., the plan was, as Punk is saying last night, the plan was he's injured, he broke his foot, he's coming back at All Out, he's going to wrestle at All Out, they're probably going to do the undisputed championship match at All Out. He comes back at Quake at the Lake, clears people out of the ring, but still the plan is, maybe as of that point, I'm going to wrestle at the pay-per-view. Then he's pitched, we want to do Rocky 3. We want to have you lose in decisive, quick fashion to Jon Moxley. Moxley's the undisputed champion. Then you win it back. You get convinced. You get talked around by Ace Steel. You come back. You end up with the championship, so you'll be happy, right? And Punk, in fairness, if what Punk's saying is true, he's saying, well, I'm not even cleared, and that wasn't the plan. The plan was for me to come back at the pay-per-view. And now you're telling me you want me to come back. I'm not cleared. Get squashed, lose, and then eventually I'll win the title back. And that's going to make me look better. That's going to make me look good, because it didn't. It made no sense. And Tony Khan may have put his foot down and said, we want to do a big rating, but they didn't really do a big rating. They didn't do a big number. And at the pay-per-view, it felt weird. It felt flat. And that was and that's the last time we've seen CM Punk inside of an AEW ring. So this kind of story at the time felt like CM Punk grandstanding and being a prima donna and all that kind of stuff. And you can say that's what you believe, but it is interesting to know the circumstances of what was going on at the time. And as is always the case in pro wrestling, from my experience, if when it happens at the time, you look at it on TV and you go, that doesn't make a lot of sense. They're having the same reasons backstage going, that doesn't make a lot of sense either. And it's something last minute. And seemingly, according to Punk, the last minute thing was Moxley doesn't want to lose to you. Moxley doesn't want to lose to you at the pay-per-view. He wants to get a win in because of him being the world champion. So we're going to do this squash match. And this is Tony Khan's way of trying to keep everyone happy. But by keeping one person happy, he also pissed off the highest paid person in the company. That is CM Punk. So it's a complete mess. And I'm sure we'll get more details today. But as of right now, that's the latest reaction to all of this. Punk has reacted saying he's too old for this kind of stuff. Chris Jericho's reacted saying delete. The thoughts of CM Punk wanting or threatening to quit in 2022 upon his return make a ton of more sense now. And the big question is, what is the reaction now going to be? Do AEW and Tony Khan finally find themselves in an untenable position where they give CM Punk the release that he's wanting? Or do they go back to negotiating, try and find a non-compete clause, which Punk doesn't want? Punk wants to wrestle, and he may want to wrestle in WWE. So I know people can say this is repetitive, it's the same story over and over again, but this story, which had died down a little bit in recent months, has really reared its head a lot in the last 24 hours, and I expect a lot of big fallout to this. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Of course, if we get any more information on this, we'll let you know. Remember, you can join the WN365 roster by clicking that join button, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.